Welcome to the 7th episode of Ask Big Al. Today we're going to ask Big Al some of the questions that you sent in. So the first question is from Tom. Tom asks, how many aftermarket converters can be mixed in the load of cats that he sends us?
Tom, that's a great question. Tom, we would like to take the opportunity to give you an answer right now. If you send in a load, and if this load particularly has 1,000 converters, and we would want to take out 10% of that load being just aftermarkets. Aftermarkets being that we don't want to dilute your load, we don't want to change the load, the matrix of the load. So we've come to the conclusion that it works in your matrix. The best is about 10% of whatever you send it. If it's 1,000 converters, 1,500 converters. We kind of like average about 10%. If you send over a few more than the 10%, it's still okay to do it. But if you're a high volume yard or scrap metal place and you send in volumes of aftermarkets because you got the count for it, we would actually process that separate for you and give you a separate assay on that. So if you're looking forward to doing some business and want to send in some aftermarkets with us, feel free to send them in and we will treat them just like regular converters and dismantle them and assay them. Thank you, Tom, for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Al, for answering. So we're going to go on to our next customer or potential customer who asked the question.
Sure. And
this is Jack. Jack asks, what makes it hard to ID converters?
That's a good question, Jack. IDing a converter can be very difficult, especially when you're in a rush. They don't use numbering systems on all converters. Some numbers are hidden underneath the shield of a converter. And if you come from New England area markets, they are so rusted that the numbers sometimes are rusted away. And again, this is another thing I want to bring up. When you sell a converter on assay, that is something you really don't even have to worry about. If you're a core buyer, selling to a core buyer, that becomes a real issue. Then you got to have a good core buyer who knows the converter by its shape, size, feel. As strange as that may seem, he can tell if it's half empty, half full. So a good core buyer will definitely help you and guide you in that direction. If you're a customer who is strictly on the assaying part of it, the numbering system, IDing the converter does not matter. Thank you for that question.
He also added an additional comment, so this is the same person, Jack, that they also buy loose material from walk-ins and broken up cats. Does that change any of the answers that you gave?
Yes, that does. It doesn't change the answers on ID in the converter. This was from Jack, you said?
Yeah.
Jack, that is probably one of the difficult areas to be in when someone brings you in loose material. I say that because we see it come into our place all the time. At UCC, and primarily when we see that, we can actually do an assay. We have all the equipment, we have a lab here on site, so we're able to check that immediately, almost, in most cases for our customers. We want them not to be taking advantage of the industry. What I mean about this, it is easy to falsify loose material. I mean, you could put cement in it, which kind of looks similar to the texture, the color. You can do speedy dry. When it dries to a consistency, it's got a gray look to it. When it dries to a consistency, you can add that to it. That's why off the street, buying loose material, if you have to buy that, you want to buy that dirt cheap. But if the customer's bringing you in quantities, we offer something here at UCC that is probably not well known in the industry. We do you could send us a sample and someone in our lab would ID that for you and tell you exactly what's in it prior to you buying it, if it's done quick enough to give you an opportunity to maybe purchase some of this loose material. But if it's just like 2 or 3 pounds, you have to gamble with it. If you're handling this on a regular basis, you're going to see the consistency with catalysts. It's when you get to the higher volumes, 55-gallon drumfuls, 25-gallon drumfuls. When you see that where you can't see the bottoms, you can't see the middles of the drum, that's when you need to be concerned to know what's inside it. So those are the areas I think you should watch out for when you're looking at loose material over the scale or when they bring them into your locations.
Okay, great. Yeah, we can go ahead and move on to the next question. George asks, do you buy O2 sensors?
Oh, yes, George, we certainly do buy O2 sensors. I'm amazed how many O2 sensors come in. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds, actually thousands of pounds.
Do you know what the price on those is?
They vary. They go according to the market. I've seen them up as $5.75 a pound. It takes roughly 6 O2 sensors to make a pound, and I've seen them when they were $3.75, $4.75. So they're all over the board because they go with the market as it fluctuates up and down. So yes, we do the O2 sensors for you. That's not an issue at all.
Is that when they send in the catalytic converter with the O2 sensors on them, or
No,
separately?
you have to send in the O2 sensors removed from the converter. When you send us the O2 sensor, we actually take claim of that O2. We have to remove it. So we'll take it out and the UCC will claim that O2 sensor. But if you are going to take off the O2 sensor, you will be paid forward for that. You weigh it if you have a scale of your facility, but we'll weigh it here on receiving it. And we got a really nice system in place. When your order comes into us, we take pictures of it. We send you a picture via email or text it to you. You'll see what your product looks like on our scale. We have a big scale and a big TV camera above, giving you the actual weight. So you get first-hand knowledge of what we received. And it's kind of, we do that to give confirmation when the product comes in, what condition was the box in, and all. We want you to see it. So that's, the O2 sensors are done on the same way. We put it on a scale. We'll take a picture of it, weigh it. You'll see the weight, confirm it with your weight. So back to your question, that's what we do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Dave sent us our fourth question. So it is, do you just buy from core buyers? And what other converters change shields?
Okay, that's a good question, Dave. Dave, we do not buy converters. We're primarily a company that does it on assay basis only. And that's when you take the inside of the converter out, dismantle it, and put it through our mill and process it, and then we bring it into our lab and test it for ppms. And basically, the core buyer is the one who buys the whole converter, and he is the one who would be the person who deals by the piece. So he has to have an avenue to get rid of his converters. There is only one way to process a converter, and we happen to have one of the ways to process it at UCC. We decan, mill, sample, and send it off further for fire assaying. So does that answer that question?
Yeah, that does answer the question about if we buy from core buyers
Okay.
or not.
All right.
But what other converters change shields?
Oh, he's referring back to the time that I get an article on Hondas.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that was your first episode,
Okay,
actually.
so what are the Hondas? The reason why I chose Hondas, let me go back it's a little bit with this, Dave, is because Hondas, their values are the highest in the industry and the easiest to change because there are no numbers on the converter themselves. So as far as other converters that actually kind of want to be fooled in the market, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything other than the Honda that they actually had a shield switch. That is the biggest one that I see, and that is the most I've heard about has been the Hondas with the switching of the shields. There are other things people do in the industry that kind of like put a little monkey wrench into converter IDing and converter testing, and especially if you're a core buyer to be aware of. It's stuff that we don't normally talk about, but the core buyers know about it, and they got this amongst themselves. Is sometimes you'll see instead of they'll stuff a converter with paper, and then inside there is actually rocks instead of converter stuff. So when the core buyer sees the paper in there, they just shake the converter. Oh, it's broken up, and they assume that it's all converter pieces. But in essence, someone has put rocks. When the converter guy or someone realizes this, and even when they come into us, we know that this customer is not going to be a long-time customer. You're going to put up a flag every time you go to his location, and something will happen. So there are other ways, not that I can reveal all of the ways that they cheat in the industry, because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, But yes, there are ways. If you send us your email and would like to see something on an email format, personally, I could put it together a little thing for you. All right, so well, thank you on that question.
Thank you. So, Sandy is actually the lady that gave us our final question. Can you help us ID and buy cats? Do we or should we sell by the piece or do it on assay?
It's two questions you got there. Can we ID is one of the questions she's asking.
Yeah.
We are presently working on a program to converter ID. It's pretty intense the way we're doing it because we're giving PPMs to identify the converter with the numbering and everything that goes with that. So yes, we can help in that area. As far as training, there was a question training. We do offer some on-site training of converter identification. It is it would probably take someone 3 days here, in all honesty, to do that. The amount of converters they would have to physically put their hands on and do it. But I'm sure we could work something out with Sandy if someone in her organization wanted to come and do this with us. I don't think that would be an issue. And what was the third part of that question?
So basically the question only asked, can you help us ID and buy cats? And then the second part was, do we or should we sell by the piece or do it on assay? And I think you've spoken to that before.
I would almost, if it was me doing it in today's market, I would definitely be doing on assay. But again, there are some great core buyers. I mean, but personally, assaying is the end of use, end of line. It's the only place you can get to the end is through assaying.
I think what I like about assay is that it really takes out the guesswork.
Absolutely.
And you know that you're getting the true value from your converters.
Yes, absolutely.
Versus it being, you don't know what you could be getting or what you could be missing out on.
Yeah.
Now, for those novices among us, what does PPM stand for?
Well, it's parts per million. Then that's basically the only way you can do converters. Actually, there is no other way. And there are places that actually, I've seen them here. They've come into us with a hole drilled with the side of a converter.
Yeah.
And they stick their XRS gun towards it and kind of get a reading. Basically, that gives them an idea. There's some PPMs in there, precious metals. But it's really not the way to do it. There's an air gap, what I call an air gap. So you're not getting a true reading for what's there. It's no different than someone taking a can and shooting through a can and trying to tell me what's inside it. It's just not going to happen 100%.
Right.
When we do it in the lab, everything's done precise to a science, so it's done correctly, and we get the right PPMs that we're seeing for that.
Okay, great.
In industry. Back to the core buyers, again, there are core buyers that are super great in their industry.
Yeah.
And we do the assaying, and we're good at what we do. We've been doing it for quite a while now. I guess we've been doing it maybe 13 to 14 years, and maybe a little bit longer on assay. I'm not even 100% sure. So it's got some tests behind it. It's got some rock solid testing for years.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Big Al.
You are welcome.
And we will see you again. Please send in your live questions, any questions that you might have. We want to answer them for you on our show. We'll see you next time.